Netflix's latest international acquisition is this overly energetic Korean action thriller, which features quite a few exciting elements that will definitely make it attractive to a particular audience. Is that audience you? Should you watch Carter? Hi, I'm the Artie Dance from Asian Film Fans, and let's check out the reasons you should or shouldn't watch this film. A man named Carter is awoken in what seems to be a hotel room, almost completely naked, and is immediately forced into action when a group of elite operatives burst through his door looking for a scientist. A voice in his ear, a real voice, not an imaginary voice of him slowly going crazy, gives him instructions on how he can outrun these operatives. The problem is, the man doesn't quite know who he is. He's stuck in the middle of a battle between several high-level government agencies who all seem to want a piece of him. There's the CIA, the South Koreans, and the North Koreans. Why do they all want him? Well, there's a virus spreading throughout the world, causing people to turn into violent zombies, so that's original. And he apparently knows the whereabouts of the scientist's daughter, whose blood seems to be the cure of the disease. Or someone knows the whereabouts and wants to guide him. You know, we don't blame you if you find the story confusing. I'm pretty sure the actual storyline was a very, very distant thought in the filmmakers' minds when they were creating this film. There are a few good reasons why an action junkie would love to watch this movie. Firstly, it's virtually non-stop action. Well, not quite non-stop, but it's pretty close. The movie really only stops to catch its breath when it thinks it needs to tell the audience a bit of story so they can understand why the next scene is about to happen. Now, my litmus test of non-stop action in an Asian movie is the Indonesian film The Raid, which after the first 20 minutes of build-up ends up being pretty much non-stop. And the reason that works is because the film's really simple. An elite team just needs to travel to the top of the building to kill the bad guys. Carter ends up overcomplicating its plot to the point where the movie needs to stop and tell the audience at several moments what's going on. Good case in point being on the airplane when the reporter essentially narrates everything for her audience. If the story wasn't so complex, this movie would easily be on par with the non-stop action of The Raid. The action here has a lot of variety. There is the obligatory hand-to-hand fight scenes, especially in the beginning as Carter is trying to catch his bearings. The scene in the bathhouse being particularly brutal, and thanks to all those gorgeous women, also particularly sexy too. We then move to jumping out of buildings, vehicle chases involving motorbikes, vans and buses, shootouts in an abandoned shopping mall, and on top of a moving vehicle carrying pigs. Not only that, but we get treated to some great action sequences on a plane, including a rather incredible skydiving scene. And then there's the finale involving a train and some helicopters. There's a lot of variety here to satisfy action junkies, and while there's a lot of CGI work to create these scenes, it seems to be what the younger audience wants in their movies. Supporting the insane action is some of the most energetic camera work you'll see in an action film. The film attempts to imitate a one long take shot, reminiscent of Tak Sakaguchi's recent hit Crazy Samurai Musashi, or for those unfamiliar with Asian cinema, you'd probably be more aware of the war film 1917. In 1917's case, it was a series of takes stitched together to create the one long take film with most of the cuts well hidden. With Crazy Samurai Musashi, it was approximately 3 takes, not including the start and end, which were stitched together to create the 80-minute sequence. This resulted in some quite stilted and lackluster action and virtually no special effects. Thus, Carter took a leaf out of 1917's book and decided to stitch together what appears to be around 60 to 70 different shots, blended in with excessive use of CGI to create some more spectacular scenes. Thankfully, the camera's always moving. You will see shots of Steadicam work where the operator is clearly running around with the actors, only for the vision to switch to a drone which then takes over the more impressive shots, such as flying under cars or circling back on focal points to redirect the viewer's attention. There's a lot of choreography needed here, and regardless of your overall thoughts of the film, this is quite impressive. It's just a little too much at times. And I think if you're a gamer who's very much into third and first person action games, you might really enjoy what this movie's trying to do. There are elements of Metal Gear Solid, or indeed thousands of other games, where you have a character in your ear constantly giving you advice and instructions on where to go. Then there are the unbelievable action scenes, suspension of disbelief, and the whole rescue mission elements that are added to the movie which blur the lines between gaming and movies. But it might leave you with an important question. Do you want to watch a movie that feels like a game for 2 hours, or play a game instead? With the good comes the bad though. Carter struggles to put together a cohesive story. The story is neither interesting nor engaging, instead borderlines on plain confusing and unnecessarily complex. There are too many details to follow, too much double crossing, and too many characters that interfere with the cohesion. It's also rather poor that the movie's main bad guy is not seen until beyond the halfway mark, leaving very little attachment to the audience to care about him. In fact, annoyingly, the movie tries to introduce us to no less than 3 separate main bad guys before we meet him. Being an action movie, the importance here is on the action. To that extent, the actors have done an awesome job with that element, but only competent enough with the actual acting portion. Lines of dialogue feel awkward and rushed, most likely due to the whole one long shot trope used. The English-speaking characters are poor and wooden, although not as bad as Squid Game, but comparable with other more recent Korean movies like Peninsula or Ashfall. This in turn really takes you out of the moment of the movie and gives off a rather unpolished feel, which is a shame as a lot of attention is emphasized in the effects and action sequences. If you're also hoping for an interesting take on zombies and hoping to see more of that in the film, you'll also be disappointed to discover their role is so minor they might as well not have bothered. Other than a half-decent sequence on the wooden suspension bridge and another scene towards the end in the lab, there isn't much zombie action of note. Now you might be asking why I'm bringing this up, and it's because the plot, what little of it we have, revolves around a zombie-like virus overtaking the world, particularly North Korea. And lastly, there's just fatigue with this film. The camera is constantly moving, and with the strange frame rate and wide-angle lenses used, there's a real video game feel to the movie. I can handle this movement in a game because I'm the one controlling it, but in this film, it just creates fatigue, and dare I say it, it might result in nausea for some viewers. And the fact that this film is 2 hours long and never stops might be more than enough to put some people off. There's a lot to unpack with this film, so let's break it down to a few key elements. In regards to action, I'd award this movie a solid 5 out of 5. There's no denying that the action is plentiful, varied, violent, and exciting. It may be a little too much, but if you're an action junkie, you're well catered for. In regards to storyline, I'd only award this film 1 star. Action movies live and die on the simplicity of their story to facilitate the action scenes. Die Hard is a policeman in a building trying to save his wife. Battle Royale is about a group of school kids who need to fight to the death. And Infernal Affairs is about an undercover policeman infiltrating a crime syndicate, while the syndicate also infiltrates the police department. Simple. But this movie is far more complex than that, meaning it frequently needs to pause to tell a new bit of story so it can continue with the action. And in regards to excitement, I'd award the film 3 stars. The energetic camera work can lead to fatigue by the end, but there's plenty of explosions and a variety of techniques in the filmmaking process that have been employed to keep things looking fresh. Overall though, the movie struggles to barely score 2 stars. A weak and complex storyline betrays the action, which at times is so ridiculous and far-fetched that you stop pretending that anything that happens in the film could actually happen to one man in real life in the space of only a few hours. If you've seen Carter, what did you think of it? Thank you for watching this video. Please press like if you enjoyed it and subscribe to Asian Film Fans for more action news, trailers and reviews.